You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. What up, mi gente? It's your boy Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. I am so happy to have this person on right now. I mean, he has a dope book project coming out from Mad Cave Studios, folks, called Edenfrost, all right? So this man is not just a comic book writer, but he's also a very successful animator director and also an award-winning filmmaker. Let me introduce to the scene the one, the only Amit Tishler. What my homie? How you doing?
Woo! Pretty good. Still have a voice, so I'm okay.
Yeah, well, and folks, do not be mistaken. No, he is not a heavy metal singer. He is a comic book writer and more. All right, when he talks about his voice, he has been on the scene telling people about the greatness of this fantastic project that is Edenfrost and a whole lot more. Ain't that right?
Well, I'll tell you this. The biggest disappointment for people is finding out that I'm not a musician of any kind. Like, I have no rhythm. I can't play shit. Like, you try to give me, like, a guitar, good luck. Like, I'll be able to smash it very successfully. But other than that, nah. And sing, play music.
It's the look for hire if you want. There you go. Right?
Well, I like the music. I just can't play it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Listen, in the green room, I tend to play some music, and I was trying to get homie to move. He just stood there staring at me, and he goes, "No, Al, not from me."
Fair.
Very honest man. Thank you. Well, you know what, my brother, thank you so much for coming on, hanging out with me today, and talking about not just this dope book, but a little bit more about yourself for those that are unaware, if you will. All right, because I know you've been around the game. You've been doing some things, across different genre, which is amazing. But let's reel it back just a tad, if you will, and tell us where you hail from and what was the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with.
Oh, okay. That last question is a hard one. I'll do my best. I'll do it with caveats, like I do everything else. So, okay, like general bio. I'm originally from Tel Aviv, Israel. I started my career as a 2D animator on both TV shows and software products, like interactive educational simulations, games, etc. And nowadays, I'm a creative director at the LA-based media agency, Pure Imagination Studios. And over here, I'm charged with developing immersive branded entertainment experiences for essentially their big film studio clientele. So that means games, augmented reality apps, location-based experiences, and more. And by night, also an independent writer for comic books, IP development for TV, games, and more. As far as my first big pop culture passion, it's a hard one to answer, but I can say this. One of the two earliest that come into mind, because I always go like, okay, the first two things that come into mind are probably the ones. So I'm just going to say these. It was Spider-Man. Always been a big Spider-Man fan. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was hugely into that.
Oh, I bet. All right. So which version, though, of both? Was it the animated or comics?
It was the animated. Like, I grew up on the animated series and from their movies and kind of everything else. But that's more or less
that was the jam.
I started, and it kind of drew me into the entertainment industry.
Excellent. All right. So then talk about that journey, though, being an animator and then becoming a comic book writer and a director. I mean, how is that journey? I mean, what was that learning curve? Did you even have the intention of diving into this from when you were young?
Yeah. Oh, the intention was definitely there, like from very early on in kind of a, I guess, creepy way. My mom still quotes the fact that, like, when I was already 12, I knew which school I wanted to go to. When I was before that, I was just like, one day I'm going to, I actually said arrogantly so, I'm going to move to the States and I'm going to make TV shows.
Yeah, you
Okay, okay.
oh man, you're a magician, but that long hair is because he's the wizard, folks. There you go. He manifested. That is the wizardry of the Samson
But
hair right there. Wepa.
if it was as easy as manifesting something, maybe maybe that wouldn't have shaved off some years from my life. But it was a pretty hard journey, or a harrowing journey. Like, if you think of, I kind of, I went professionally, the way that I moved from Israel to the States, which was not an easy process. It was through my skills in animation, right? Because that's a trade skill. That's something that you can sell, that you can actually make a salary, that you can get a visa based on if you're lucky enough. So, though that was my, let's say, trade skill.
So you studied animation in
Yeah.
Israel. Okay.
Yeah, I studied my undergrad in Israel, and I studied grad school here, which was kind of my entryway into this.
And what was that year? What
That
year
was,
was
I
that?
moved to the States in 2010.
All right, all
2010,
right.
2010. Yeah.
All right, so
So yeah,
13 years ago from this point. All
yeah,
right, bet,
yeah.
bet. All right, all right.
13 years.
13.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's
But
been a lucky 13 for you, though.
you know what? To address your question, like, I kind of, my passion didn't start from animation. I always loved it as a medium, like most kids do, but it
All right.
actually did start from comics.
Okay.
I was a comic reader in a time period that comics were very, very hard to get your hands on back in Israel in, early
Yeah,
90s. Like, that was not a thing.
really. So
It's
wait,
still
wait, wait.
very. Mhm.
How did you even know about comics? Did you get put on? Did you happen to find this on your own?
That might be a question for my parents. I have no idea. Or, although I think I do know why. So I started with a lot of local stuff, right?
Okay.
There were local comic book artists that put their work on in, like teen magazines and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I started. Where I learned about, American comic books, I honestly don't remember. It's been a while, but my guess is that probably came from animation, right? So,
Yeah.
because even looking at like early drawings, that my mom keeps all of these. So, like, if you look at like very early drawings, like when I was 8, I was trying to like sketch out Spider-Man, right? It's not a normal thing to do, I guess. But that was
And I was doing Voltron, when I was a kid.
There you go. And that's the stuff that you saw on TV. So it was only a matter of time before you know, oh, this is a comic book character. So wait, it's also in this medium. That's kind of where that started from. And when you first draw, you're not really thinking of how to get into film, because film production almost feels abstract or unattainable, but comics feels like something that you might be able to do yourself.
Okay.
So that's where you start kind of honing in your craft. And I think that's where I kind of had my gateway drug into, that was my gateway drug into like superhero comics, like a lot of the local stuff, and trying to draw it myself. I kind of turned into a Marvel fan early on, and getting my hands on a comic was always a massive challenge, because the only store that would sell them, like now there are actual comic book shops, not a lot, but they exist. Back in the day, you'd have to hop on a bus 30, 40 minutes into the center of town just to be able to get your hands on whatever comic they have there or something. Yeah, it was really, really niche. A lot of the stuff that I loved as a kid.
Oh man, you telling me I could have traveled to Israel with a box full of comics and been pimping and making some good money?
Well, but that's the thing. Nowadays, everything is widely accessible, right?
Yeah.
We're in the age of the internet, and there are comic book shops.
Listen, I'm a 90s child. I'm a 90s. I understand you. I was those kids going on a bike from Brooklyn to Queens, to get comic books, for 50 cents, $1 boxes, start bin diving, because my boy said, yo, I know a shop. You know what? We don't got money for the train, so we're gonna listen. That was like a 1-hour bike drive.
Yeah,
but it was so well worth it, with a book bag full of comics on the way back home.
Exactly. Once you get your hands on it, you're like, aha, the new, I don't know, like Clone Saga, Age of Apocalypse, whatever was running at that time.
And not just money, but talking shit about your favorite characters. They're talking smack about. Hey, you gotta read this. Like, your character's a herb. You see what homie did? Type joint. I love it. I love good times.
Yeah.
Good times, brother.
Yeah, it's a journey, right? It's a journey where you feel like you've earned the treasure that you managed to get. And at the same time period, I also really got into video games. So I was into all the niche things that a lot of kids weren't into at the time.
Okay.
Again, now it's different.
You're right. You're right. In that era, listen, to be a gamer, there's some things we talked about. You had your
Yeah,
select group of friends if you had that.
exactly.
If you had
I-
that.
Very
Otherwise,
few.
I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I was lucky. I had a group of friends, and together we go to the arcades back in Times Square when they still had the arcades. We
Yeah.
broke nights several times playing. Beating Mortal Kombat, beating Street Fighter, X-Men. The Turtles, the arcades. Doing all that awesome, fun stuff.
Yeah.
Almost getting beat up because you're killing everybody in Street Fighter.
Yeah. And same, like we had one arcade that was in the same, like in the center of town, and there was one Mortal Kombat machine that was sitting in a bodega in my neighborhood. There was a line of
Hey.
kids behind that machine, because that's the most accessible thing that you can
Wait,
get your hands
you
on.
said bodega, so when you came to the States, where did you come?
So this was not in the States. I'm using the word bodega as a shorthand.
Okay.
In
I'm about
Israel,
to say, they got bodegas in Israel, then I know. Hold on,
they
wait a
do.
minute.
They do, but we call it pitzutzia, which I'm not even
Pituzia?
bothered to translate what that means. But essentially, it's like a little store that sells,
Delicatessen.
candy,
Gotcha.
drinks,
All
whatever
right.
that.
Sundry type joint, but
Yeah, and it's a very common thing. Like, you'll see it all across town. The closest
right.
equivalent is a New York bodega. It's not exactly the same, but it's the closest equivalent. So
Yeah,
that's
listen, you got me already. I can't wait to visit Tel Aviv one day. I gotta visit one of these
there you
joints.
go.
If it's as close as it comes, I'm gonna be happy because Florida had no bodega. So you telling me out
Yeah.
of country I can find something close, I'm happy. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something here. How does your background in animation, if you will, influence your approach to storytelling in comic books?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because it actually has a really significant effect on, I think, how I direct a scene and how I write a scene. Because when you study animation traditionally, you go through all the steps of production. You go through, from writing to storyboarding, character design, back. You kind of learn everything, and you become better or worse at some of these things. And that's how you find your specific skill that you're selling for work. But it does force you to think in cinematic ways, or in cinematic terms, which, by the way, could also be a trap, because those two mediums are very different. So being able to address, when you get into comic book writing, script formats themselves, they look different. And the dynamic between screenwriter and whatever team puts together the thing also varies wildly. Comics are a lot smaller. The production teams are much, much smaller. TV and games can both, start from teams of 10 to teams of hundreds, right? If it's a feature film, thousands sometimes. Like, you would have a lot of people that put their hands on it, doing different things. So the scale changes, but also the way you think about how to direct a scene or how you pace things out, especially if you're coming from being used to storyboard. And I think there is a nice middle ground. I hope that's what I managed to reach. It's what I aspire to, a nice middle ground where I can flex a lot of the cinematic thinking and put it into how I write comics, while still respecting the medium itself and leveraging both its limitations and strengths, because those are significant to us eventually, like what your user experience is going to be. So yeah, it has affected how I write things, how I see things, even how I put together my pitch decks and how I design it, how I talk about it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this actually leads into the next question. How do you see the intersection of animation and comics in today's entertainment landscape?
Damn, holy curveballs, man. So this is, I'll take it one. Yeah, no, I dig it. So I'll take it one step beyond. I'll say that there is an intersection, not like this is the media intersection in general. It's animation, live action, if you want to put it under the category of linear video-based media, video games, and comics. Now more than ever, it used to be slightly more siloed, slightly to significantly more siloed, depending on the time period. And you would even hear it with, conversations from people from comics versus people from TV, how they talk to each other, how they view each other in industry events where they have to interact. There was a lot more segregation. Whereas I think today, the way, from a business perspective, the way everybody sees it is essentially intellectual property. It's IP, right? A property is malleable. If it's a good property, or most properties, it is malleable and it could be adapted potentially to more than one medium if it's done right. Because theoretically, you can adapt everything to anything, but you might end up with shit if you don't do it correctly, or you might not respect the source material. But today we've seen enough examples of one thing being translated from one medium to another successfully and respectfully, right? And that kind of checks off all the boxes for everybody involved, which is the fan base is mostly happy, mostly. Then you have the businesses, right, like that are involved with it being happy. And they also check off the boxes of, we've managed to both make our existing audience accept this transition, and we've also reached new audiences that will now, perhaps some of them or a segment of them, will be interested in the source material. That's like that's a crown jewel. That's what you want to aim for. So we're in a really interesting time, because we're not just seeing, the way that the comic industry functions today is that really they want to still produce good comics, but they also know that from a business perspective, they have to think of whatever they invested in as an intellectual property that can be malleable, because stunted growth, right? Your business has to make money, and the way to sustain, to do what you love to do, is to see it in greater terms, because comic sales alone won't cut it if your business wants to grow. So they have to think strategically, and I think that actually broke a lot of the barriers that existed before between people from these industries. So I think it's interesting, because I'm not just seeing this go from, hey, comics to live action, comics to, because in the end, comics is a good place to start, right? Comics is a good place to start because production-wise, it's cheaper than making a video game and easier than making a video game, and it's cheaper than making a film or an animated show.
Absolutely.
But there's
still
it'll
lead into that.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of them see it as a good starting point, because it gets you some industry validation. Like, hey, we've put it out there. Somebody's already invested in it. You tested out the product and you found an audience. There's something there, right? If there's an audience, there's something there. There's something you could do with it. So it's a great testing ground, while also being able to stand on its own, because some people will just like it in one form or another. Some people only watch an anime and never read the manga, and vice versa. And this is also happening with video games, right? You're all of a sudden seeing properties that used to be one thing, even just a toy, right? It used to be like, hey, what are most animated shows on TV? Commercials for toys, right? Commissioned commercials for toys.
Yep. America Transformers, G.I. Joe, Go.
Exactly.
All that
Everything
stuff. E-Man.
Yeah. It was really to sell toys. So the starting point is no longer, oh, it has to start like this and end like this. It's, can we turn this into an intellectual property that can be malleable and flexible and expand to other mediums? It started cross-industry conversations that I've never quite seen before in this form. And I think it's good, because I think it kind of flattens the entertainment industry a bit instead of like siloing it.
Yeah, and it also aligns the fandom, across stuff. And Frantic Romantic over here is showing you massive love. Shout out to Frantic Romantic.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah.
He is a beloved co-worker, project manager at Pure Imagination Studios. We both work. So, hi, Mike. You're awesome.
Hey, that's how Pie for Life is. There you go. Pie for Life. There we go. You should have put that as a hashtag. Pie for Life, folks. All right. PI, show the love to the Frantic Romantic. All right. So talk about diving into creating your first comic book project. What's that like? What was your learning curve like? I mean, what
Yeah,
made you jump into saying like, all right, let me go ahead and do this. It's time. From
yeah.
fan to creator.
It was also like everything that I've ever done. It was kind of it's never a straight line. It was a journey of a lot of experimentation and a lot of different logic-based reasoning and just gut feeling sometimes. This forces me to kind of backtrack a little bit. Like I've been experimenting with producing comics in different forms, whether it's like just web, like web shorts, like little strips, to actually
web comics.
yeah, like or just producing like a piece of comic just to see how that whole pipeline is done. So I've done that in multiple spots as almost like practice or for fun. When it was done professionally for the first time, Edenfrost, the title that is about to come out with Mad Cave, wasn't the first one. Right? This wasn't the first title.
So this wonderful baby is coming out soon wasn't the first one. All right. So
it wasn't the first one to
we'll get into that soon.
Yeah. So it wasn't the first one to get developed and pitched to publishers. So I've been like developing and pitching. Again, let's just put it in the bucket of intellectual properties because I've done it as TV shows. I've pitched games before. Like I pitched a lot of different properties again with this multimedia.
You're a pitcher, bro. You're like Roger Clemens, Doc Gooden. You pitching Sandy Koufax. You pitching out there. Dealing, wheeling and dealing from back in the day, hustling.
Yeah. I mean, look, it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot about how your idea can be conveyed to other people, what works, what actually gets an emotional reaction, what drives other people to want to consume any product of any kind.
How did you even learn that, brother? I mean, did school teach you that, or was that really experience, or just being Amit?
It's honestly, it's that. I'm the guy who would walk into a new workplace and just go like, all right, so who's the boss here? That's their door. Slam, boom, knock it down. I'll go like, hey, I have some stuff I want to pass by you. That's what I've always been.
The forward guy.
Right? So it's a lot of trial and error, which I believe people should make more mistakes, as many as possible, because that teaches you a lot, as long as you know that you've made a mistake, by the way.
Absolutely. I've learned many lessons.
Yeah. So a lot of this came from literally, it's two things. Experimentation, three things. So experimentation, there is a little bit of research. You actually have to look up like, okay, how does this process work? So you don't just come in like an overconfident idiot. And there is also soliciting help, just asking people for random acts of kindness. Like, hey, you are doing this kind of thing. I want to learn more about it because it's something I want to pursue or something that I want to explore. I've gone on to like watch some shows before, saw some of the credits of like who the showrunners were, and I went, okay, this name, ran to Facebook, added them, and just went like, hey, I have some questions. Can I take you out to lunch? Because
I love that.
And that I ended up developing friendships like that.
All right, so wait, before you even move forward. So see, that approach works, people. Don't be shy. Take life by the, maybe I'll offend some people here, but I gotta go with the old school saying. You gotta grab life by the balls and just go for it, son.
Horns,
and
balls, whatever you can grab.
Yeah, whatever you want to fathom, horns, boy. Yeah, and just go with it, yo. Do it. I mean, look at him, he made connections happen. I mean, that's wonderful though. Why? Because you came with a wonderful energy. You came, enthusiastic about a project. I'm sure. And it's like,
and look, I mean,
genuine.
Sometimes you also just come from a point of humility, which, by the way, I'm not the most modest person in the world. Can you tell? But it's not that. It's you come from the knowledge of like, here is something I don't know. This person knows a lot more than me about this topic. So I'm just going to say, hey, this is who I am. So they get some validation. You're not coming out of nowhere, right? I'm in the end in the same industry, but I come in and say, hey, I want to learn more about this. Feel free to, completely ignore me. And a lot of them would. But would you be down? Like, I'll take you out to lunch. Just tell me whatever, like, can I ask you some questions? And some people don't respond to it. And some people do. And those random acts of kindness are usually people who have been there before, still have the empathy because they remember what it feels like
Heck yeah,
to be
man.
there, and
I'm
they
one of
know,
those.
right? Like, and you know that you remember that. You're like, oh, if only I had that kind of
Yes.
person who
Oh,
came in and just
preach.
supported the
Me,
family.
preach. I always tell people I wish I had somebody like me back in the day that I could just pop. And listen, don't be afraid to ask me. I'm an open book. I don't give a shit. Oh, why not? Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah,
What's wrong with
and
that? I'll share.
that has worked out, right? So the same thing goes to pitches. Like when I came in because I managed to make friendships, develop connections that helped get me there. And I had you kind of do it simultaneously as you work, so you also build your professional credibility, right? Um, and that really changes the entire dynamic. So when I got to comics, uh, I've optioned TV shows before, and I've been heavily in both like technology, games, and TV for the last decade or so. And I also noticed how a lot of the, let's say, entertainment landscape changed. Now, Edenfrost is a title that I've developed alone, but I don't always work alone. So, like, I actually have a writing partner I create a lot of properties with. When I was saying, oh, this wasn't the first, that's what I was alluding to. So Elliot Pearl is a good friend of mine. He is a co-creator on a lot of the next titles that are coming out as well. He's, again, industry friend, worked for years on Bob's Burgers, Great North, animator. We used to work together on, like a bunch of shows for like HBO and WWE networks. Okay. And we've been pitching together for years as well, right? So I'll be doing it individually and with him. We kind of saw, first of all, there's a lot of dumb luck. And anybody that tells you otherwise, bullshit. There's a lot of dumb luck.
I love this.
But even to get the chance of benefiting from dumb luck, there is some groundwork being done. And for us, there was this realization that the entertainment landscape is changing in how it's looking at incoming stories and how it, again, looking at intellectual properties as something that goes across media. Okay. And we're both fans of comics, right? Like he's a heavier comic consumer than I am. And we just went like, you know what? Some of these things might today, because of the diversity in comics in general, they might actually work. Instead of pitching them to TV, why are we even going to bother with that? This could be a good fit for this medium. And once again, you do the research. We actually hired and worked with artists just in order to practice and learn the craft. So you're not coming in, I'm this guy from different industry. So all this years of research and all of this work, you put a lot of groundwork to show, hey, these are professionals that are essentially coming in and saying, this could work well in this medium, but it's not just the same. We've adapted it so that it could work in the way that it works. And we started pitching things together. We ended up, and again, this is where you kind of, I guess, strike gold and stupid luck. We ended up getting like 4 originals essentially greenlit all in 1 year.
What?
Edenfrost was maybe the last one, but it's the first to come out. The rest are going to come out between throughout 2024 and early 2025. Okay. There's 3 more titles. Can't say much about that yet. Some of them are with Humanoids Publishing. Another one aside from Edenfrost with Mad Cave Studios. And that's what kicked off that journey. And once again, by that point, you're not a newcomer to anything, because even getting to a lot of these publishers, we leveraged the expansive network that we had, people who we could call upon that worked in comics much longer than any of us ever did, and could tell us like, oh, you should, literally how we got to Humanoids was a friend of a friend told us, yeah, you might want to look at them because they're looking for this kind of thing, because we showed them what we were developing. They might be interested. That was the first one, right?
Wonderful.
So that stuff is really significant. Talking to people openly about it, soliciting help, showing what you have, because once again, some people will ignore you and some won't.
And asking them for their opinion. Once you have them locked, ask them right there. Okay, so why doesn't this work for you? You know what I mean? Yeah. Or who do you think? Exactly. Use that network. Talk, sweet talk. Get them another drink. Hey, hold on. Get them another gin and vodka over here or whatever. And I got more questions. Hold on, baby. And you better get that soda. You stay sober as hell and just take notes.
Look, I think it's important that people don't drink their Kool-Aid a little too much, and that they don't buy into, let's say, romantic narratives too much. That's just part of my personal philosophy.
You're right,
Everybody can
bro.
disagree, but I
No,
do
you're
think it's
right. You're
important
right.
to know. It's important to know who you're appealing to. It's important to know who you're talking to. It's important to be objective about the fact that in the end, no matter what we want to do, this is part of an entertainment industry. We are producing in one form or another a consumer product. And that is extremely important when you face the fact that I feel like a lot of people in my field, again, I was just a craftsman, an animator for many, many years. People treat everything as their baby. The minute I hear that, I'm like, no, man, you gotta be ready to drown some of these babies. Gotta skin them, redress them as something else, because these are not your babies, right?
Reword that. It's not your baby. Maybe it's just
Yeah,
a poop you took. Maybe, hey, look, it looks like somebody, doesn't it? But we gotta flush it down at some point.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes you do, and you have to be objective because it isn't your real baby. People, don't flush your real babies down the toilet.
No. Flush your poop,
No,
not your
these
baby.
aren't babies. Exactly. These aren't your babies, right? These are creative projects that need to adapt, that need to change, and that you're never going to be objective about.
You birth
You're not
them,
going to be
yes,
fully
but you
objective.
got to release them. Just like mama birds do, right? They
Exactly.
release their little birdies and
Yeah,
it's a wrap, they're done. They're out there
yeah.
flying. So fly, birdie, fly. so
And
with
look, if
that,
somebody gives you, sorry, look, you said like if somebody gives you feedback, right? Not all feedback is good feedback, but all feedback comes from a certain place, right? You have to have at least some awareness to know if somebody reacts this way to the thing I have presented, maybe I do need to adjust it a little bit. Maybe I do, like, be adaptable. A lot of the things that I ended up selling went through multiple iterations. Some of these things that are about to come out went through more than 7 years of iterations.
wow.
Like that's the truth. Yeah, and multiple versions with significant changes. So that's really important.
Basically from concept to now,
yeah,
they're different. Totally.
Like the core concept usually stay similar.
Yeah.
Like, like you always start from, you always revolve around that core idea that you believe in, that got it started. But everything else, the details, some of the characters, their dynamics, the world, exactly. All of these things are adaptable. They can change. And sometimes, and you see that even with adaptation, sometimes some adaptations just feel all of a sudden outdated because things that have worked or are very relevant to a certain time don't always hold up in the world today. It's important to be objective about that, because as a professional, that's also part of your job. And that goes a little bit outside of just the creator.
Okay. All right, we got to keep going over here because I want to get into this wonderful book. You got to start on this dope book that's going to be dropping in the fall. So for people on the first, let me once again show it and put this baby on screen. So talk about this for me. What inspired the concept of what is Edenfrost, and what are the themes that readers can expect to encounter?
Okay. All right. So a lot of questions. I'll try to address them all. And if I forget anything that you asked me to say, just let me know. So I think the best way to think about Edenfrost is that it's essentially a historical fiction series, adventure drama comic that essentially tells the story, the tale of two young siblings, Alex and Yuli, that use the mystical power of a golem, and I'll put that in giant air quotes, I'll address that in a second, to survive the chaos of the Russian Civil War. As was mentioned before, it is my debut original comic series with Mad Cave Studios. Woo! And at its core, it all revolves around, and this goes into your question about themes or statements. It's all around the topic of identity. Now, and I can get deeper into that if you want, but in general, it's very tense, it's epic, it's mysterious, and it completely reimagines the classic Jewish folk myth of the golem, which, in its classical form, was supposed to be this sculpted monstrosity that was handcrafted and brought to life to defend Jewish people in diaspora against anti-Semitic pogroms. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was to create a modernized version of this creature by taking bits and pieces that inspired me from different works of media, in order to create something that's new and fresh. And I'm just taking that element and injecting it into a historical setting that's uniquely relevant to the type of story I'm trying to tell and to the statement behind it. As let's say a generalization, the series discusses racism, ethnic bias, all through the lens of anti-Semitism, political philosophy, and the interplay between the two throughout human history. And it does it in a pretty unique way. Now, as far as the statement itself, which I think is a thing worth addressing.
Talk about it, baby. Talk about it.
Thank you. So one of the things I'm trying to say, and I think it ends up impacting every single character and every single element of the story, is that identity is an intellectual construct. It's fluid, it's ever-changing, it's a product of an intelligent civilization as opposed to a law of nature. And as a construct, it's important to be wary of the potential to weaponize it, because when it gets weaponized, it can be used to unite, divide, or annihilate or target any group. In the end, we are tribal species. We are creatures who are unintentionally but naturally put emotion first and rational thinking second, no matter how reasonable we really think that we are. And
reasonable.
What?
I said, who's reasonable? What are you talking about?
Right. But you got to be honest about that, right? Because it is a vulnerability. And let's be fair. I think especially the last few years, we've seen how this vulnerability can be exploited. So unless we're constantly aware that that's a vulnerability and never forget that the true nature of identity is context sensitive and ever changing, that it's a subjective idea, we are more likely to act smart when facing its weaponization and exploitation. That's that moment that you mentioned of and then I stopped myself for a second because I had that other thought. That is such an important thing. And one of my hopes is that in this context, I can leave that with the readers, that they'll start viewing the idea of identity for all of its forms as an intellectual construct. Even though they know it is, people don't act or react like it is.
Awaken to it. Awaken to the fact that it is at the end of the day.
Exactly. And that acknowledgement might actually make people on all sides see each other as human. And
which is what I want at the end of the day too. I say that shit all the time. I say, are we humans at the end of the day living out? I can't wait till the aliens come. I say that jokingly, but the day that real aliens come, everybody's gonna be like, "Yeah, you got my back. Yeah, I got yours." Color, race, not ain't gonna matter. It's gonna be Earthlings, us humans, aliens.
Exactly. They'll just see you through one thing. Again, because I come from a Jewish background, I take it from a Jewish perspective because that's a story that I can tell. And but that logic isn't exclusive to anti-Semitism. That's the whole point that Edenfrost is trying to make. It's not a story about necessarily Jews in diaspora. That's just the POV. It is a story about identity. The fact that this same vulnerability can be and has been weaponized and exploited to persecute so many groups. All you really need is a goal, an agenda. It's never about morality. It's never about ethics. It's never about purity. It's always about power. It's about power and it's about control. And awareness forces you to question what you're being presented with. And sometimes that's all you need to prevent yourself from doing something really bad.
Amazing. All right, so I want to ask you here. Elaborate on that touching on such deep topics, if you will. Elaborate on that collaboration and process between you and Mad Cave Studios, in bringing Edenfrost to life, especially with such, amazing themes like that. 'Cause I know Mad Cave is definitely, a very forward-thinking publisher, but in something like this, talk about that creative process and bringing this baby to life through them.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I think a good place to start with this is just acknowledging Mad Cave Studios have been amazing to work with, and they were very supportive. I kind of came in with this concept just coming and swinging, right?
Oh man. Oh, he went from pitching to swinging. Oh man.
Look,
all these baseball acronyms. Do you like baseball?
Dude, I don't like any sports.
Oh shit.
Terminology.
Full of sports acronym, but I don't give a shit about the game. All right, I love it.
It's absolutely true. But see, know your audience. The audience would recognize it. That's all you need. It's a shorthand. That's why I used bodega before.
That's why I love it. Give me those bodegas. I'm about to visit Tel Aviv, man. Come on now.
If it gets the point across, it's valid. So they've been amazing to work with, and they've been very open and very just supportive of my vision of it. And I think that to begin with was just a great experience that definitely differentiates itself. Like the differences between indie comics and, let's say, television development are pretty serious, and indie comics are a lot more creator driven. Now, one of the things that I am so thankful for is, and this is where I give huge shout outs that I keep doing throughout all these interviews because they are important, to the team that they built around this. Because you come in as a creator and writer going, okay, I built all these art guides, I built all of these presentations, I'm going to write the entire thing. But as a publisher, they bring in not just marketing, but also building the team, like the editor, the letterer, the artist, and they match them with you while keeping the concepts and what you want to convey in mind.
May I ask, how is the matching process between writer and artist? Because I would think that's very important, because it's got to be a synergy, if you will, in that process.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's a great opportunity to get into that. So this happens, and again, this is without internally seeing the conversations that I'm not involved with, but the editor-in-chief, the publisher, and my editor, who's James B. Emmett, who's freaking he's amazing, right? One of the best project managers, editors I've worked with for years, and cares a lot about his work. So him and Chris, the publisher, have essentially, the process goes like they show you lists of artists, and we brainstorm. We say like, okay, we think these are a good fit. And, some of them I'll go like, yeah, this one will be great. This one, not so much.
I'm laughing like, it's just like they put you into a police station. It's look through this book. Who did it?
Here are all of the usual. Well, but that's how you vet, right? To make sure that you're on the same page. And then once you have your short lists and you go through multiple of them, they reach out and see if they can strike a deal, because, scheduling and pricing and everything like that.
Of course.
And they do that with everybody else that's involved, letterer and artists, and in titles that also require a colorist, which in our case isn't. That's also a component. They matched me with Bruno Frenda, who is an Italian artist, and you've seen his work now. It is phenomenal.
I mean, look at it. Look at this. This is gorgeous. Look at the panel structure, the page. I mean, the page itself is a full page that then incorporates 4 panels on top. So beautiful. And then just the pacing of it, and the lettering, looking like it was ripped out of a book. Beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the second thing, right? Like they also brought a letterer, Taylor Esposito, who's very experienced, and once again, just a killer. Goes in, gets the job done fast, adaptable, gets what I'm trying to do. And I think that's the big aspect of this that's really important, is the team that they constructed all care about their own craft, and you can see it and feel it. But I also feel like there's a very good matching. I told Bruno this in an email literally today, when I was like, I feel like you're in my head, right? Where often I saw this, especially in his work early on, because I looked at his portfolio. He loves a lot of the same works of media that I like, right? And that helps a lot, because I use shorthands and I use a lot of references. I'm trying to construct this scene, this kind of scene, and this character is supposed to project this. And if you're inspired by a lot of the same things, that's just, you got really lucky, because the other person just gets where you're going, both emotionally and narratively, and they know how to apply it. And everyone, whether it's Taylor or Bruno or even James, were able to kind of harness this. And I think part of it is just communication, and part of it is just good matching and good craftsmanship. And what it produces is a product that looks and functions like this. And that's an amazing thing to see. So I consider myself really, really lucky with all of this work and a team that I really greatly value. Like, I'm just glad that they're part of this journey, because you wouldn't get this particular product the way that it looks now. You wouldn't get it without all of these people involved.
And we gotta show people here again, because look at that publication date right there. We're looking at November, all right? So again, you have time, folks. So all you gotta do is go to, start asking your comic shop, look through that dime. It's gonna be coming up soon. The code will be available on the Man Cave website real soon. So you could get those pre-ordered. Or if not, you can even pre-order it on the site. Look at it. It's only $4.99, baby. Whereby, what? To be delving into a brand new comic book world? Heck yeah. You got me sold, baby. You got to make that
Thank
happen.
you.
You know what I mean? For real. So,
Thank you.
what are we talking about here in terms of the series? How many issues? How long is the story? What we got here when it comes to Edenfrost?
Yeah. So right now we're starting with I kind of split it into story arcs. Like, it's a limited series, so it has a beginning, middle, end. It's not something that's going to go forever.
Okay.
And part of it is just the setting. I know exactly where the end point is going to be, but it's going to be multiple story arcs that happen throughout this time period of around 4 years, right, or 5 years, in these characters' lives. So right now we're starting with the first arc, which is going to be 4 issues, right? They're going to tell, kind of like, get us to a certain milestone, and then, as things continue, it's going to be another arc and another arc.
You're gonna leave us on a cliffhanger and make us wait months before we go to the next one, teasing us on me, and then you're gonna be like, well, the only way you're gonna know about this, I gotta tease you on more podcasts. He already knows what he's doing. You already know, pimping.
Yeah, I mean, but like, because the experience that I want to create is also the kinds of experiences that inspired me to get into this entire industry to begin with. I always loved that. I loved when there was a feeling, and this is a personal preference. I loved the feeling that the creator or the team that created a certain property knew where it was going, and that I'm writing it along, and that they're not giving it to me all at once, right? Like, you're leaving me with wanting more. That is both a frustrating and a wonderful feeling, because you feel like you've had this new discovery. You're invested in something. And of course, it's also how the medium functions. But I can guarantee to whoever enjoys this, you'll know pretty quickly. Within these 4 issues, they leave a lot of questions unanswered, but they give you just enough so that you kind of get where I'm going with this, or you get a feeling about the vibe of the entire series. And if you're sold, you're going to keep with it, hopefully.
See, folks, again, it's dropping in November. How easy is that? Now,
That's right.
now,
That's right.
just 2 more questions. Just 2 more questions, my man.
Come on.
The next to last is: are you going to be doing any conventions? Is that in the forefront? What's popping? Where can we see you? At least start talking about these books. So I know this drops in November. Unless you're going to be having some ash cans or something that you're going to be teasing, let us know.
Yeah. So there's stuff that I can't announce yet, but will be announced. But on a very basic level, I went to San Diego Comic-Con. So I was there for a very short time. It was very last minute, but I actually made it for like a quick signing.
Did you enjoy
New York Comic-Con.
Did you enjoy it? Was it your first?
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't my first.
Okay.
It was. I used to go there as for both like meetings
As a regular. Okay.
and as a regular, like as industry professional pass. You just go in, you go.
I got you. It was like Norm from Cheers. That you go to San Diego. Hey, what up? I got you.
Well, you strategically you go there to meet people that you work with. It's like a lot of for you. It's kind of like it's half pleasure, half business. And then at a certain point, I basically went when I got really into like, okay, now I'm pitching stuff, I'm developing. I actually went. I'm no longer going to any of these. The next time I go to one of them, it's going to be because I got invited for my thing, for my story. That was it. So that broke the cycle.
He ain't paying for shit. You better invite me because I'm a creator. I've been doing this. I got value. We got to get you on some panels and talking about animation fiction, filmmaking. We gotta get to talking about. I mean, you have what? So many topics to discuss. Panels. What are you guys doing? Conventions. You guys are missing out. Come
Yeah,
on.
so New York Comic Con. New York Comic Con.
I'm
I'm
in
going to
there.
be there.
Oh, you
And
oh, we gotta
yeah,
connect there, brother. We got. I'm gonna be there. I'm
sounds
already in
amazing.
the press. My tickets are on the way, baby. So I can't.
Love it.
Woo!
We're gonna do it. And I'm gonna be in Mad Cave's booth, and there's
Oh,
gonna be
word.
more announcements related to that. But yes, I'll be there the entire time.
Right.
It's gonna be fun. Definitely, and I don't know between New York Comic Con and next year, but because I have essentially like multiple titles, both me and Elliot have like stuff coming out from now until 2025. I'm probably gonna be in all the major cons at the very least. Others, we'll see.
There we go. There we go. And lastly, what piece of advice would you give those aspiring creators looking to diversify their creative skill set like you have?
Oof. Well, I mean, it goes into, I guess, career advice in general. Don't double down on the one thing that you know how to do. Adapt, always learn, always be curious, always learn new tools, try different things, and don't be afraid to fail, because you will. That's a good thing. You fail, you learn a lot from it, and you can apply that moving forward. That's probably the best piece of advice I can give, and it's something that definitely was drilled into my head by my parents over the years. And it makes a big difference. It really makes a big difference.
Oh heck yeah! I remember I would fail and then I would get the belt, get hit a couple of times. I never failed again. You know what I mean? My
Yeah,
parents definitely
yeah,
drilled that shit in me, boy.
yeah. How do you know if you did
I don't
something
know,
wrong
nice
if you
way.
didn't fail?
Exactly, exactly, and get smacked for it on top of it. I think that's
Yeah,
back in the day, adult teachings. That's parenting, not
pick out the
not
belt.
yeah. Man, if back then I said to me call the cops, man, I get. You know what? They told me literally, go and do that. I would literally wait for the cop to arrive and beat your ass in front of them. I'm like, okay.
That's
I
hardcore.
was like, oh shit. Did I want to test mom? No, 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 I did not. All right. So with that, folks, you know what to do. Don't test your mama, and of
No.
course you got to support this amazing book that's dropping in November for Mad Cave, which is an amazing publisher with a fire line of amazing books as well. But I mean, and his people got this gem called Edenfrost dropping. So you want to stay tuned. You don't know what I mean is going on. Check him out on X or Twitter, because he refuses to say X is Twitter.
Thank
Wrath of Tish, Instagram, Amit.Tishler, LinkedIn, Amit Tishler. All right, no app, but I just put that there because well, you know what to do. All right, I'm an old fogey, and this is what I do. All right, and with that, you can also check out more of Amit at his website at amittishler.com/mindsplatter.
Mind
Epa.
Splatter is a newsletter that I'm running on my website, so you can see my entire
Ooh.
website. But that one I'm essentially writing to both other industry professionals, people who are interested in what I do in general. It's a lot of fun, so you can actually see it in that archive, almost like a magazine. Yeah,
Hey, there we go. There we go, folks. And lastly, and most importantly, visit at madcavestudios.com. Check out the pot for Eden Frost #1. Again, dropping in November. You can put that pre-order in. Make it happen. Support independent comics. Support. Look at this. A diversified creative individual like this guy. Whereby, why a triple threat in comics? You know what I mean? Shit. Here we go, man. I can't wait to see. All right. This is actually the last. Right before we go, if this could be anything other than a comic book, what would you want it to be?
You know what? With this one, it's easier. I would say animated show.
Animated
I
show.
would say
Ooh.
animated show. Yeah.
There you go.
For
All
this
right.
one,
All right. Now that he said it, and since his childhood he was manifesting, he just manifested his show, folks. Stay tuned on Hulu or Netflix real soon because he's gonna be dropping. He just manifest. It's being done. It's done. You're gonna get the contract like in a couple of hours right now. Jeez, bro. I mean, it's a
already started.
powerful wizard, folks. There we go. There we go, folks. But show the love. Thank everybody for tuning in to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I'm your host, Al Mega. Please check out the website, comiccrusaders.com. My extended family over at undercover.com. My man Johnny Hughes got amazing shows like Outside the Panels. We got No Price Podcast, Definitive Crusade, K-Pop Cosmos, a whole lot more. And again, I'm going to show this website one more time. You can follow Amit everywhere on social, his websites and on the Mac and websites. The notes are below. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.